Vanished after my wife's affair, years later she's still trying to find and win me back. I still remember the exact moment I made the decision to disappear from my wife's life. It wasn't after I caught her cheating. It wasn't after the late nights, the lies, or the way she'd look right through me like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. No, it was in the quiet of our bedroom, after she'd fallen asleep, her phone still unlocked on the nightstand, the damning messages lighting up the screen. It was then, staring at the confirmation of what I already knew, that I realized something. I didn't need to fight. I didn't need to scream, demand explanations, or beg for honesty. I just needed to leave. And not in the way most people do, with arguments, divorce papers, and lingering wounds that never truly heal. No. I needed to vanish. The next morning, I kissed her on the forehead, told her I was heading out for work, and walked out of our apartment for the last time. I had already spent the night preparing. I had cleared out my essentials, clothes, personal documents, my laptop. My savings, what little she hadn't drained over the years, were in a new account she didn't know existed. The lease was in her name. Everything I left behind, our furniture, the wedding photos, the life we had built, was now hers alone to deal with. I turned off my phone as I stepped into my car, heading toward nowhere in particular. It was an impulse, but one I had been preparing for in the back of my mind for months. She had someone else. Fine. She could have him. But she'd never see me again. No dramatic exit, no confrontation. Just silence. For a long time, I assumed that would be the end of it. I was wrong. For a long time, I thought I had truly erased myself from her life. Months turned into years, and I rebuilt myself in silence. No social media, no shared friends, no loose ends. I moved to a different city, changed my number, even found a new career path, one that didn't leave a digital footprint for her to follow. And yet, she found cracks in the silence. It started small. A mutual friend from the past would send me a message out of nowhere. "Hey man, your ex-wife was asking about you. Everything okay?" I'd brush it off, ignore the curiosity in their words, and move on. Then, I heard from my cousin, the one I barely kept in touch with. "Weird thing, your ex reached out to me on Facebook. She wanted to know if I had any idea where you were." I ignored it. I had no intention of giving her even the satisfaction of knowing I acknowledged her search. Then, she got bolder. One evening, after a long shift at work, I stopped by my usual coffee shop, an out-of-the-way, no-frills place where I could unwind in peace. As I stepped out with my drink, I felt a strange pull at the back of my mind, that eerie sensation of being watched. I turned my head slightly, just enough to scan the crowd, and that's when I saw her. Sitting inside, by the window, her fingers curled around a cup she wasn't drinking from. My stomach tightened. She hadn't seen me yet, but the fact that she was here, was too much of a coincidence. This wasn't her city. This wasn't even her part of the state. And yet, there she was, looking around as if expecting me to walk through the doors at any moment. My heart pounded in my ears, instinct screaming at me to walk away before she noticed. I should have left right then. But I didn't. I stood frozen, my fingers clenched around the coffee cup, heat seeping into my skin, yet my whole body felt cold. She was right there. For years, I had imagined what this moment would be like, if it ever happened. Would I be angry? Would I feel anything at all? Turns out, it was neither. Just a strange numbness, like I was watching a scene unfold from a distance, detached from the version of myself standing there on the pavement. Then she looked up. Our eyes met. In that split second, I saw everything. The shock. The desperation. The barely contained relief. Her fingers trembled as she knocked over her coffee, scrambling to stand, and suddenly she was moving. She was coming toward me. I turned and walked away. The sounds of the street blurred, but her footsteps cut through the noise, quick and determined. I clenched my jaw, lengthened my strides, refusing to look back. My car was just ahead. A few more steps, and I could leave this moment behind like I had left her all those years ago. But she was faster. She stopped just short of grabbing me, lingering on the edge of my space, as if unsure whether she had the right. Up close, I could see how much she had changed. Thinner. Dark circles beneath her eyes. She looked worn down, as if life had drained something from her, but there was still something familiar there, the persistence, the way she locked onto me like I was the answer to something she couldn't figure out. I could feel the weight of whatever words she wanted to spill. The explanation, the apologies, the carefully crafted speech I already knew I wouldn't believe. I exhaled slowly, staring past her, beyond the years between us. Then, against my better judgment, I stayed. And I already knew I was going to regret it. She was talking. I heard the words, but they slid past me, weightless. I had expected this, some grand explanation, an attempt to rewrite history in a way that suited her. She stood there, eyes darting between my face and the pavement, hands twisting together as she spoke. Her voice cracked at all the right moments, carefully controlled but just raw enough to sound real. I said nothing. She filled the silence with everything I had no interest in hearing. How things weren't what they seemed. How she had been lost, confused, trapped in something she didn't understand until it was too late. How she had thought about me every single day since I left. I kept my expression blank, but inside, something twisted. Not because I believed her. Not because I cared. But because I knew, without a doubt, that she had spent more time mourning my absence than she ever did appreciating my presence. Regret had a way of rewriting memories, turning neglect into misunderstanding, betrayal into a mistake. And she wanted me to believe it had all been a mistake. She had no idea how little I cared. I let her talk, let her pile words onto the wreckage she created, and when she finally faltered, waiting, hoping, for some kind of response, I gave her nothing. I could see it then, the panic creeping into her eyes. The realization that whatever power she thought she still had over me was gone. And that was the only thing she had left to lose. Without a word, I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. But I knew this wasn't over. I thought that was it. I thought I had made myself clear. But some people don't know how to accept silence as an answer. A few days passed before the first message came. A simple, almost casual, "Please, just let me talk to you one more time." As if we had simply drifted apart and not torn apart at the seams. I ignored it. Then came another. And another. She tried different angles. Apologies. Nostalgia. Desperation. And when none of those worked, she switched to guilt. "You owe me at least a conversation." That one almost made me laugh. Owe her? I had already given her more than she deserved by staying in that marriage long after it had died. When the texts got no response, she tried calling. First once. Then 3 times in a row. Then late at night, as if catching me off guard would somehow change the outcome. I blocked her number. Then she found another. The messages kept coming, now from an unfamiliar contact. But it was still her. Still the same cycle, the same refusal to accept that she no longer had access to me, to my life. She was unraveling, and I could see it in the way she typed, the way her messages grew frantic, less calculated. The polished act from our coffee shop encounter was slipping, revealing the raw desperation underneath. And that's when I knew, she wasn't just looking for closure. She was looking for control. I had taken something from her the day I walked away. Something she never expected me to take. My absence was a wound she couldn't stop picking at. And I had no intention of helping her heal. At first, I thought she would give up. That after enough ignored messages, enough calls that went straight to voicemail, she'd get the hint and move on. I underestimated her. She started reaching out to people around me, old acquaintances, distant relatives, even co-workers from a job I no longer had. She was searching for cracks, for any way in. I heard about it secondhand, from a guy I used to grab drinks with after work. "Hey, man, your ex hit me up on Facebook. Said she was just trying to check on you." Weird, right? Weird didn't even begin to cover it. Then came the emails. Long, rambling confessions. Regret stacked on top of excuses. A rewritten history where she was just a lost, misguided soul, and I was the love of her life who had abandoned her when she needed me most. It was almost impressive, the way she twisted reality to make herself the victim. I deleted every single one. But she didn't stop. One afternoon, I was walking out of my apartment building when I saw the envelope. No postage, no return address, just my name, written in her handwriting, left at my door. I stood there for a long time before picking it up. Inside was a letter. Pages of words she knew I wouldn't read if she had sent them any other way. She wrote about our past, about the memories she thought still mattered, about the future she convinced herself we could still have. But one line stuck with me more than the rest. "I know you think you've moved on, but deep down, I don't believe that's true." That was when I realized something chilling. This wasn't just regret. This was delusion. She wasn't searching for forgiveness. She wasn't even searching for closure. She was searching for a version of me that no longer existed. And I had no idea what she'd do once she finally accepted that. After the letter, I knew it was only a matter of time before she escalated. It was a gut feeling, that uneasy sense that someone is just a step behind you, watching, waiting. I started noticing small things. My name in search bars of old social media accounts I had abandoned. Unfamiliar numbers calling at odd hours. And then, the worst of it, shadows of familiarity in places they didn't belong. The first time, I brushed it off as paranoia. I was at the grocery store, throwing things into my cart, when I caught a glimpse of someone lingering near the entrance. Dark sunglasses, hair pulled back, body turned just enough that I couldn't get a clear look. But something about the way she stood, rigid, hesitant, like she wasn't sure whether to come closer, sent ice down my spine. I forced myself to walk past, pretending not to see. The second time, there was no mistaking it. I was at a gas station, filling up my car, when I saw her in my rearview mirror. Across the lot, half hidden behind a row of pumps, her hands stuffed into the pockets of her jacket like she was trying to disappear into herself. She wasn't approaching me. She was waiting. For what? I didn't want to find out. I got in my car and left without looking back. That night, I double-checked the locks on my apartment. Closed the blinds. Sat in the dark, phone in hand, scrolling through the messages I had ignored, the calls I had blocked. This wasn't just obsession anymore. This was persistence with an edge of something darker. She was getting closer. And I had the sinking feeling she wasn't going to stop. By the time I saw her outside my apartment, I knew I had underestimated just how far she was willing to go. It was late. The kind of quiet hour where even the city seemed to hold its breath. I had been sitting in my living room, absent-mindedly flipping through channels, when something pulled my attention, the sensation of being watched. I don't know what made me look. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the weight of everything leading up to this moment, pressing down on me like a warning. I stood, walked toward the window, just far enough to peek through the blinds without being seen. And there she was. Standing on the sidewalk across the street. Not moving. Not making any attempt to hide herself. Just staring. For a long moment, I did nothing. My pulse pounded in my ears, every nerve in my body screaming at me to react. But how? Confront her? Call the cops? Would she even still be there if I looked again? I forced myself to breathe, to think. Then, just as slowly as she had appeared, she turned and walked away. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went straight to the leasing office. Asked if they had security cameras, if they had noticed anything strange. The woman at the desk gave me a sympathetic smile, but the answer was clear: there wasn't much they could do. No restraining order. No physical threats. Just a woman standing on a sidewalk, legally doing nothing. But I knew better. This wasn't over. She wasn't done. And now, I wasn't sure if she ever would be dead. I thought I could ignore it. That if I pretended she wasn't there, she'd eventually lose interest and move on. I was wrong. Days passed without incident, but the silence only made me more uneasy. Every time I stepped outside, I scanned the street, the parking lot, the faces around me. I started checking over my shoulder on my way home. Taking different routes. Making sure I wasn't being followed. Then, one night, I came home to find my door slightly open. I stopped cold. I knew, without a doubt, that I had locked it. My fingers curled into fists as I took a slow step forward, pushing the door open the rest of the way. The apartment was dark, untouched. Nothing was missing. Nothing was out of place. But the air felt wrong, like someone had been there, standing in that same spot, deciding whether or not to go further. A chill ran down my spine. I backed away, pulled out my phone, and dialed. Not her. Not anyone she could talk her way around. The cops came, checked everything, but there were no signs of forced entry. No proof that anyone had been inside. Still, I knew. And I knew exactly who it was. This wasn't just her trying to find me anymore. This was her trying to prove that she already had. And I had to end it. That I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, every muscle tense, waiting, listening. I kept replaying the moment I saw that door cracked open, the sick realization that she had been inside. That she had been here. This wasn't obsession anymore. It was something unhinged. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I packed a bag. Not much, just essentials, things I couldn't replace. I wasn't planning on running forever, but I needed to be gone long enough to make a point. Before leaving, I took one last look around. This place had never truly been home, just a stop along the way after I rebuilt myself. And now, it was tainted. Violated. I walked out the door, locked it behind me, and went straight to the police station. This time, I didn't let them brush me off. I filed a report. I told them about the stalking, the letters, the calls from unknown numbers, the way she had turned up everywhere I went. I pushed until they took me seriously, until I had something official on record. Then, I changed everything. A new phone number. A different apartment in a different city. New job. New bank accounts. Any thread that tied me to her, I cut. And then, for the first time in years, I disappeared again. She tried to find me. I knew she would. Friends reached out, confused messages like, "Hey, your ex has been asking around. Everything okay?" But she never found anything. Never got close enough again to leave another letter, another crack in my sanity. And eventually, the messages stopped. The calls went silent. The past, finally, let me go. Maybe she moved on. Maybe she still searches, convinced that one day, I'll resurface. But I don't care. Because I know something now that I didn't know back then. I never owed her an explanation. I never owed her closure. And I sure as hell never owed her a way back into my life.